Hi, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make some homemade pizza crust, and it's really not hard, trust me. Alright, as you can see, I'm going to use my stand mixer. I like to use the stand mixer anytime I'm making a yeast bread of any sort. You could do this by hand if you want, and you'll just have to knead it quite a bit to make it very smooth. You could also use a food processor if you have a large one, or as a tall blender if you have one that is designed for making bread dough. In here I have 3 cups or 15 ounces of bread flour. You could use all-purpose flour, but your dough will not have that stretchy chewiness that we like in a pizza crust. So I suggest you use bread flour. To that I'm going to add 1 packet or 1/4 of an ounce of RapidRise yeast. And yes, this is the RapidRise or the instant yeast. And I have 3/4 of a teaspoon of just plain old table salt. And I'm just going to stir this together just to get that yeast blended in with the flour. And now in this mug I have 1 cup of water that I've heated to between 120 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and I like to use my instant read thermometer to verify that. And to this I have added 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Use whatever kind of vegetable oil you prefer. Now I'm just going to add the liquid mixture into the flour, and I'm just going to stir it up to combine it. And that way, when I turn this mixer on and have it start to knead the dough for me, I'm not going to have flour dust spraying all over the kitchen. And I'm going to have my mixer knead this for me with the dough hook. Whoops, there it is, the dough hook. For anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes, and we'll touch base as soon as that's together. Our dough has kneaded for 10 minutes and it looks really super. Now we need to allow it to just rest for 10 minutes, and I'm going to take a plate and just cover this up and allow it, I'm going to set it aside and allow it to just rest for 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I have a large round pizza pan. You can use a rectangle baking sheet, whatever you've got. It really doesn't matter. Now this amount of dough is going to make 1 14-inch or so thick crust pizza or 2 12-inch thin crust pizzas. We always like them thick. So we're going to make 1 large pizza out of this. Now I have 1 pat of butter, 1 small amount of real butter, and I'm going to grease this pan. I prefer to grease it rather than spray it with nonstick spray. You can grease it any way you prefer. It doesn't have to be butter, it can be whatever you like. And if you want to use a nonstick spray, go ahead and give it a whirl. I've actually not tried it with a nonstick spray, so I'm not sure how well it would work. Based on what we have to do after this. But anyway, I don't even have to coat the entire pan to all the edges because my crust is not going to go out that far. Anyway, once you've got that done, let me wipe my hands off. I have some cornmeal, actually a blend of cornmeal and corn flour, whatever you've got. And I'm going to just coat this pan where it's greased with the cornmeal or corn flour, whatever you have. And after the dough has rested, then we're going to form the crust. My dough is rested and it's looking very nice. Now there's different ways to form a pizza crust. I'm going to do it on a lightly floured board. There's no more than a tablespoon of flour that I've spread out on this board. And you can see that I'm just trying to lightly coat this dough with it. You can form it with your fingers just like this right on the pan. I've done it many times. But I thought I would just do it a little differently today and show you that there's more than one way to accomplish the same task. Now, when you go to roll, if you're going to roll or even form it with your fingers, when you go to form it, if that dough is very stiff and it's not very elastic and it just doesn't want to move, or it springs back too much, it has to rest a little bit more. Just cover it up with a towel and allow it to rest a little while longer, 5 minutes, maybe even another 10 minutes. And then when you go back to it, you'll see that it will be a lot easier to work with next time around. You see, this really wasn't hard to roll out at all. If you ask how to flip a dough in the air, that's not something I could do. That would be a huge comedy act, and you guys would have a blast laughing at me trying to do that. So that isn't going to happen here. Okay, now let me get my prepared pan. Set it aside here for just a second. One easy way to do this is roll, lightly roll, and I'm lifting the rolling pin up. Now I want to do this where you can see it, so I'm going to move this aside, put this here, and just unroll it on the pan. And you can see it's not exactly centered like it needs to be, so we're just going to move it around a little bit. Just move it around just a little bit. Restructure some if I need to. Let me get these out of the way. And we've got one nice sized pizza going here. Now the next thing you want to do, I'm going to turn my oven on, preheat it to 400. You do that real quick. And my oven rack is 1 notch lower than being in the middle of the oven. Now you want to dock the dough. In commercial bakeries, they have a rolling device that has spikes all over it, and they'll just give it a quick roll, and it will put little holes all in the dough. And I'm not poking all the way through. I'm just putting some holes in here with a fork. This is something you can easily do. Why do this? It's going to keep your dough from having a lot of bubbles in it, like air bubbles that form as this dough rises a little bit and bakes. Now what we're going to do is pre-bake the dough a little bit. I prefer to do that rather than adding the toppings to it at this point. Why? Because it keeps you from having a soggy pizza crust. I found that if I put the sauce and cheese and other toppings on here now, sometimes the crust at the very middle may be on the soggy side when the toppings are done. I don't want that to happen, so I like to pre-bake the crust a little bit. You don't want to over bake it, because then when you actually do bake it, you're going to wind up with a burnt crust. You don't want that. So this is going to go in the preheated 400-degree oven for, I don't know, between 5-7 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It depends on how thick your crust is and how large it is. You can see how big this one is. Once we get done, I'll let you know exactly how long it baked. I allowed my crust to pre-bake for right at 7 minutes. Now, bear in mind, this is a large crust and it's thick. If you have a smaller crust and it's thinner, 7 minutes may be too long. So you just need to watch it and just determine it's not sticky anymore. It has not browned, but it has pre-baked. Now it's ready for me to put the toppings on there of my choice, whatever you want, and then put it back in your 400-degree oven and allow it to bake until you feel like the cheese is bubbly enough and brown, however you want it to be. It's gonna, the time it takes to bake at this point will be determined by the size of the pizza and the type of toppings that you have on there. So I can't give you an exact time frame. Now, a couple hints here. If you want to keep this for later in the day, fine. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to allow it to continue to cool down. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and just leave it on this rack until later on when I'm ready to fix this for supper. If you want to prepare the dough and have it ready for maybe the next day, you could wrap the raw dough up in plastic wrap really well, put it in your refrigerator, and then the next day bring it out, let it sit on the counter until it's at room temperature, and then proceed forward from there. I hope this has helped to give you the incentive to try to make your own pizza crust. It's really not that hard. Yes, it does take a little bit of time and effort, but it's well worth it because it tastes so much better than anything that you can buy pre-made or any mix or any frozen pizza. It's really much better. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Have a great day.